Well, with what you might say is extraordinary perspicacity, the mother of all talk shows has one of the world's greatest economists with us this evening, Professor Richard Wolff. Much obliged to you, Professor. You must be in great demand this evening, so I'm grateful to you for your presence. We couldn't have picked a better night for it. Let me begin by asking, as I did Judge Napolitano earlier, is this just madness, or is there method in the madness? And if there is, you're the man to explain it, I know.
Yeah, excuse me, I think there is method in the madness. I think that this is a Republican Party administration. The only difference between it and what we have seen in the past is that his strategy is to go much, much further. Whereas before you tolerated white supremacists, now you embrace them. Where before you were against the people who wanted to abolish abortion, now you are their leader. Where before you wanted to get more out of your allies, now you punish them to get more out of your allies, and so on and so on. If people want to know what is driving Mr. Trump, probably the single most important thing is a matter of the tax history in this country. In the first administration of Mr. Trump, back in 2017, the only major economic act that he achieved as president was an enormous tax cut favoring corporations and the rich, which he accomplished in December of 2017. It was noteworthy mostly because it came at the end of a 30-year period in the United States during which we had had a redistribution of income and wealth from the bottom and the working class to the people, the 10%, the 5% at the top. Never did those people need a tax cut less, and they got it anyway, because Mr. Trump was taking care of business in the way that the Republican Party always had. But that law that passed that tax cut had a clause in it that it expires this year, 2025, which means that Mr. Trump has a problem. He must do something, because if he doesn't either renew that law, prevent it from expiring, if he doesn't do that, then his supporters, corporations and the rich, will face an enormous tax increase as we go back to what taxes were before 2017. He has to perpetuate that tax cut, which means he has to use his control of both houses of our Congress to get that through. And since he has promised even more tax cuts for corporations and the rich, and a few for the rest of us, he has an enormous problem. We were already scheduled to run a $2 trillion deficit this year, and he now faces a conundrum. How is he going to stop borrowing too much money that the rest of the world is unwilling to lend us? How is he going to do that without taxing corporations and the rich, who will dump him politically if he dares? That's his dilemma. And whether you're looking at tariffs or you're looking at the wholesale firing of public employees, that's what the story is about. He's trying to solve all of these contradictions and having a difficult time. But he's desperate. And if I can underscore anything for your audience in the United Kingdom or beyond, these are not the strategies of some master manipulator. These are the strategies of desperation. We're coming to a very key part of the decline of the American empire, already underway. We lost the war in Vietnam. We lost it in Afghanistan. We lost it in Iraq, and we're losing it in Ukraine. And the consequence of that is a recognition that we cannot continue. And we have so many accumulated domestic problems. What you're seeing is desperation. It's a kind of desperation from the bottom that gives Mr. Trump the presidency. And now it is fueling kinds of behavior whose long-term costs to the United States are incalculable. The risk this guy is taking should make everyone wonder about the future of the whole world.
I think many of us are wondering about that. It's enough to make you believe that we're approaching the end times, I've got to tell you, and it's taken me 70 years to utter that phrase. The desperation of which you speak, producing very desperate measures. I mean, when you are into triple-digit tariffs with the biggest manufacturing economy in the world, and possibly the biggest economy in the world, though they deny it, but certainly the second biggest economy in the world. The two biggest economies in the world in a triple-digit trade war with each other. I mean, that all sounds a bit dangerous to me, Professor.
Yes, it is extremely dangerous. And we have to be honest, and I say this as an American. I was born here, lived here, worked here all my life. The United States is the initiator. The United States is afraid of what is going on in China, and by that I mean its staggering economic growth. I mean, here is one of the poorest countries in the world a few decades ago and is now a superpower. I mean, that is a model for the mass of the people of this planet who would like to escape poverty and see in the Chinese the most successful effort so far to do that. They have made an industrialization in decades that took the United Kingdom centuries, and the United States a long time as well. But the response of the United States, which could have been and should have been, what have you done that we can learn from? What were the things you changed that enabled you to achieve what so many other countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America wanted to achieve? Instead of that, the strategy has been to try to squash it. The attack on the Huawei Corporation a few years ago, the stationing of the 7th Fleet in the South China Sea, the endless rediscovery of this dead horse called Taiwan. These are provocations now with these tariff wars. It's designed to distract them, to slow them down, to interfere. And the most impressive thing about China is that it's been going on for 15 years and it's clearly not working. And so the response of people which could have been and should have been, let's sit down and work out with the Chinese a way to live on this planet together without coming to the blows that will destroy this planet. Instead of that, they just double down. Mr. Trump's favorite strategy. If it doesn't work, do more of it. If it still doesn't work, do still more of it. By the way, the 125% tariff is not the most outrageous so far. It actually comes second to another one that I want to tell everyone about. In Europe, you can see something called the BYD automobile. I don't know if they have them in England yet, but they have them on the continent. And that's a Chinese company, and that Chinese company is the result of a competition over the last 20 years. Every automobile company tried to produce electric vehicles because they saw that as the next phase of the automobile company. Mr. Musk is famous because he was one of the early achievers, and to his credit, and he's made a fortune out of it. But he didn't produce the best one. The best one, that is the best car quality at the lowest price, is the BYD company. Every engineer who has looked at them says the same thing. Chinese and non-Chinese alike. And that's why they're very, very successful. They just passed Tesla in China as the biggest seller of cars, etc. By the way, it stands for the English words Build Your Dream, BYD Corporation. Yeah. And we don't have it in the United States, not at all, because Mr. Trump put a 27% tariff in his first term, and Mr. Biden raised it to 100% during his term. In other words, trying to stop them, but did it work? No. Has BYD Corporation grown? Spectacularly. This is a failed strategy, but it does look good on television here in the United States. Mr. Trump is smiting the world around. He's claiming we have been the victim of 50 years of cheating. He makes this stuff up. There's no economics to support it, but it is a kind of chauvinistic, nationalistic economics that plays for a while well, but not as the costs. And let me mention a couple because they're so important. Every country in the world and nearly every company is now required to re-strategize and rethink where is it going to locate its warehouses, where is it going to locate production, where can it expect to grow its market, where will it have to suffer a shrinkage of its market. It can't know. Everybody is making decisions and saying, wait a minute, we can't. And we all know in economics what happens if the investing class, the top 2 or 3%, are waiting. That was the lesson of the British brilliant economist Lord Keynes. He explained, if the corporations wait, we get recessions. That's the biggest fear in Wall Street right now, that this crazy policy of tariffs, on again, off again, higher, lower, what it does do is hold back every decision-making capitalist and thereby plunge the rest of us into an economic downturn that could rival the Great Depression because of its globality, because it involves so many. The risk he is taking to further the old Republican Party agenda in this country, and I put aside how it will worsen the inequalities of wealth and income, but merely as a manager of a capitalist system in trouble. This reminds me of a desperate person trying desperate things because he knows that if he doesn't do something, the path ahead all goes down.
It is apocalyptic, as you describe it. They say that war is the continuation of politics by other means. Is this trade war a continuation of war, or a precursor to war, as a paving stone towards war? Might all this turn hot?
I'm afraid the answer is yet. For me, it looks like a precursor. I retain the hope. I'm basically an optimistic character. I retain the hope that as you get closer to the danger, to the explosion point, when a trade war morphs into a hot war, it's already referred to in this country as a second Cold War. Now that the one with the Soviet Union is behind us, we have one with China, and we know how close on occasion we came in the old Cold War. And you know, some of the rhetoric in this country, even the other day, the Chinese response, if you want a trade war, we will fight it to the end. I don't know what the words "to the end" mean. It's a Chinese choice of phrase, but you can see the United States cannot, in my judgment, and I'm not far from alone, the United States cannot undo or reverse what the Chinese have accomplished. They can't stop what has been going on now for 30 years. The International Monetary Fund even for the 2024, the last year, which was a troubled year economically, to say the least. But if you look at the IMF, the United States grew faster than any country in Europe at 2.8%. China grew, according to the IMF, 5%. India, 7%. Okay, that gap keeps growing. And there's an understanding in the United States that time is not on our side. And that's a very ominous recognition. I believe it is accurate, but it is an ominous statement unless we get a welling up of opposition that might, if it comes inside the U.S., change the mentality. We've had 3 or 4 days of terrible stock market downturns, and many of the biggest capitalists on Wall Street are letting Mr. Trump know they like his policies, they hope he succeeds, but he cannot pinch them. It's this wonderful example of the people at the top being ready for everybody else to take their medicine or to have a difficult time, but not them. They don't even want 10% of a downturn or 20% in the stock market. Well, if he keeps ruffling the feathers, and boy, is he doing that, I can tell you the labor movement is more active in this country than I've seen it in 50 years. The opposition, this last weekend, we had an estimated 1 million people across the different cities of the United States and in villages and towns, and they all had one basic idea. Stop it, Mr. Trump. Stop it. Whatever you're doing, don't do that anymore. Now, you know, it's not organized. It's not as powerful as it needs to be, but it is very definitely something remarkable this early in the president's term.
So did he blink and drop the whole thing today, with the exception of China? It's quite an exception, of course. Or is this just another zigzag, another maneuver? Is the stock market collapse, which is now leading to a resurgence this afternoon, is it over, or will we have to go through this again the next day and the day after that?
Well, given his performance, I mean, I can't predict the future any better than anyone else, but given his performance, I would be, if I were a betting person, I would be betting on the zigging and the zagging. He has encountered over the last 8 days, it's about accurate 8 days, he has encountered a welling up of opposition I don't think he's ever seen before. And I've never seen it before. And, you know, I have white hair. So I can assure you, he has to do something. He has to make it look like he's zigging or zagging. But again, he's caught in a contradiction. By the very act he just did, he reinforced the uncertainty. Anyone who was making a plan based on these tariffs now has to throw that plan out the window because the tariffs are what? Delayed 90 days. Well, maybe he's changed the delay times, he's changed the amounts, and here's clearly a politician who's in trouble, who's desperate, who may lose in a very short time what he gained. You know, people who come out of nowhere and rise quickly often disappear pretty much in the same way. And he is now at a point, he has to do all kinds of things. But given what his advice has been, given the deeply contradictory nature of what he has already done, I'm at loss to see how he can recover, how he can recoup. And yes, he will make these sudden shifts very hard. You know, you can also see two of his major economic advisors are a man named Peter Navarro, a very strange economist. I'm being as polite as I know how, and Elon Musk. And they were literally just shy of having fisticuffs with one another as they push in opposite directions. Mr. Musk doesn't want tariffs because it'll hurt the profits of Tesla, whatever other reasons he has. Mr. Navarro is, by the way, a great anti-Chinese crusader, and he wants to smite the world in this kind of apocalyptic notion of correcting the cheating that the United States has suffered. Unbelievable. We've had a growth of our economy, particularly for the top 10%, we've never seen before. I mean, that's why it's so unequal in the United States now. And to use then the claim we've been cheated for the 25 years of spectacular growth for the rich is an extraordinary basis upon which to have a program that enriches the rich. You have to take your hat off. If I had one, you could take yours off, just to the sheer gall that animates what these people are doing.
I think they call it chutzpah. Let's be philosophical for a moment, Professor. We, alas, both live in post-industrial states. In my country, the Prime Minister just announced today not a major economic development on the graveyard of tens of thousands of automobile jobs in Bedford, but a new theme park celebrating our previous industrial greatness. You live in a country which is not so far off that, not so far off post-industrial. I get criticized as a reactionary, as someone who's harking back to kind of Soviet Britain fantasy where we have our own energy, we have our own steel, we have our own industrial base and so on. I'm told that that's for the birds. We have to live in a land of theme parks and casino economics in the city. Is some of this from Trump not the kind of reaction that I myself have? I don't want to go quietly into the post-industrial good night. Is that not partly what Trump is also doing, refusing to go quietly into a future for America where everything that is real is made everywhere else?
Well, I share your view, and I must tell you that here in the United States now, it is Mr. Trump and his people who have, and they get the credit for this, they have changed the mood. Now it is chic. I'm sitting in Manhattan in New York City. It is chic if you talk to people here, and I have many friends who work in Wall Street. Now everyone is talking the way you are. You will not anymore be called a Sovietist or anything like that. Here it is said, quote unquote, here's the language in America. We mistakenly, interesting, they think it's a mistake, we mistakenly hollowed out, they love the phrase, hollowed out our industry, and all we did was finance. You know, everything is Wall Street. Like in your country, everything was the city, London, and the financial arrangements of that. And we somehow shouldn't have done it. But let me give you a cautionary understanding. Every one of the last 10 presidents of the United States, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas, all of them, came to power running a campaign promising to return manufacturing to the United States, nowadays called reshoring, bringing them back to our shores, having that left. That is a kind of a mantra. Every president of the last 10 promised it. Not a single one of them delivered it. The line of manufacturing is a line that goes down as a percentage of our economy. None of those presidents could do it. The economic forces in the world were much too powerful for those presidents to do much about it. And my expectation, and what history would lead you to want to presume, is that Mr. Trump will not be much more successful. He's trying more extreme measures, that's true. But more successful, I don't think so. And I want to remind people, the reason all of that happened was that European and American and Japanese capitalists made the decision. No one was holding a gun to their heads. They went to China or India or Brazil or any of those other countries because they could pay lower wages, they could get lower taxes, and they knew that the markets were bigger and growing there than they were in Europe or the United States, all of which was true. That's why they did that. And that hasn't changed. And therefore, you're expecting that the theatrical, marginal efforts of this president will be more powerful than what was holding back all the previous presidents and what made those corporations do that. Last thing to drive this point home. Today, I don't know if the news has come to Britain yet, but today the United States Chamber of Commerce, probably the most important business association in the country, leaked to the press that they are about to file suit in the courts against the sitting president to stop his economic policies, particularly with reference to the tariffs. Now, that's a level of internal opposition a Republican president probably has never seen. These are the companies who put all that money into those factories in China and India and Brazil. And they did it on the basis of shipping that stuff back into the American market as at least a major part of their plan. That's all being threatened now, and they're not happy about it. As I said, as I sit here, Mr. Trump is taking spectacular risks, and the odds are they are going to squash him.